Having said that, I think I'll switch to English and allow me to focus for a couple of seconds on the general situation, which has changed so much since at least I was at a similar conference last year. We have seen a significant weakening of the regime's possibilities abroad. We have seen the end of the Assad regime. We have seen a weakening of the proxies in Syria, but also in Lebanon, in Gaza, Hamas, and we have seen even a weakening with regard to the Houthis in Yemen. And we've seen a weakening of the position of the regime with regard to implicit nuclear threats. So that's a whole different situation for the regime. And what I do think is that we're seeing a mirror image of that in the increased repression and terror inside Iran. So we've seen a weakening of the external position. We see an increase in repression and terror inside. And that is supported by a number of quite terrible facts. Of course, you all know or you follow the figures on the executions, almost 1,000 executions last year, and until the end of July, I think more than 600 in this year, which is absolutely terrible and must lead to yet another outcry of the international community. We've also seen in an official news agency the reference to the 1988 massacres as something that is to be applauded and should possibly be repeated. How appalling. All of this points to the regime's vulnerability. The external position, the increasing repression in the inside, and that's a similar situation maybe when you compare it to the situation in the late 1980s. And there is a couple of features that also remind us of the previous experiences, the previous terrible experiences. One is that the MEK, NCRI, is targeted in particular. There is a broad opposition inside Iran and outside Iran, but that is once again the main focus. There's also a disinformation campaign with regard to the PMOI, and that is, I think, also quite significant. And there is, and it was mentioned by other speakers, the destruction of evidence, the turning a cemetery into a parking lot where you find the graves of victims from the 1980s massacres. And I was very grateful to Herta Däubler-Gmelin, who pointed out that this is not only against international law, but is also very much against all religious rules there ever were, right? And this is supposed to be a religious regime. Against this background, I think Javaid Rehman's report from July 2024 on the events from 1988 is once again at the center of attention, should be at the center of our attention. And I think he has really pointed out what we need to see and to discuss, and more that what we need to do next. And there was, for example, in August 24, an important conference by also very good legal minds that came up with a number of recommendations what should be done. And one of the recommendations was that we need a follow-up mechanism that would look into establishing a truth, but also accountability with regard to the perpetrators. And there have been such mechanisms with regard to a number of countries. They have also recommended that the principle of universal jurisdiction should be applied with regard to the perpetrators, something that Mark Ellis has reminded us on. And I think there is movement in this regard. We have seen not only in Sweden but elsewhere impressive implementations of the universal principle of universal jurisdiction. One other consequence from Javaid Rehman's report should also be that the recognition of that is included in the annual resolution that is usually done in December in the General Assembly. And I would like to encourage member states of the UN to be mindful of that and include it in the resolution, and maybe also point to a necessary follow-up mechanism. The European Parliament, as you might know, has also said that negotiations with the regime should include at least two key demands, that the death penalty is abolished and that political prisoners should be free in all the negotiations, whether it's about the TPCOA and the snapback mechanism or other things. I think that should be not under the table, but on the table. So I wish you all the best in your struggle, and I hope that we will see a free, democratic, secular Iran rather sooner than later. Thank you very much.